this great inheritance and of the duties and heavy responsibilities of sovereignty, which have now passed to my beloved daughter.
The room did not erupt when King Charles issued his final royal order. It fell completely silent. Before him rested a single page carrying language no one expected to see while the throne was still occupied. With one signature, Charles officially named Catherine the new queen of the royal family's internal future, transferring ceremonial leadership, family authority, and the moral responsibility of protecting the crown's next generation into her hands. But the order did more than elevate Catherine. It displaced someone else. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Charles held the attention of everyone inside the restricted family council at Windsor. A family council was a private gathering where senior royals discussed duties, household decisions, and the monarchy's direction away from public scrutiny. William sat beside Catherine, while Camilla, Princess Anne, Prince Edward, and several trusted officials waited for what they believed would be a discussion about future workloads. Catherine expected new responsibilities, not a declaration that would redefine her place in the family. When the king spoke her name, she lowered her eyes and gripped the arm of her chair. The order described her as the central female figure of the monarchy's next era, granting her senior ceremonial leadership and responsibility for guiding the younger generation. She felt the honor, but she also understood the suffering it could cause. Camilla understood it too. The queen did not interrupt or challenge the wording. She simply removed her hand from the table and listened as the family's emotional center shifted away from her. Charles noticed the movement, yet he continued reading because stopping would expose the doubt he had fought to overcome. The designation did not make Catherine constitutional queen while the current reign continued. Instead, it established her internal authority to represent continuity, coordinate family unity, and prepare the household for William's future reign. The difference mattered. It protected the legal order of succession while making the king's personal preference unmistakable. Charles then delivered the revelation that ended any hope of reversing the moment quietly. The fictional royal order had already been entered into the private household register, the permanent internal record used to preserve major family decisions. This was not an emotional promise or unfinished proposal. It had become official within the household. William watched Catherine struggle to absorb the responsibility. Anne studied Charles with solemn approval, while Edward remained silent. Camilla, however, stared only at her husband. Her pain suggested that the decree had broken a private understanding made years before. As Charles places the pen beside the completed order, the family understands what has happened, but only the people seated closest to him know how much each of them has just lost. For Catherine, the order feels less like a victory than a burden placed directly upon her shoulders. For William, it is recognition of the woman who endured beside him. For Camilla, it is a public shadow falling across everything she fought to secure. And for Charles, it is the most personal judgment of his reign. Inside one guarded room, 4 people hear the same words, but each experiences a completely different future beginning beneath them. Catherine understood why the decision mattered. Her place had been shaped through years of public duty, family discipline, and quiet preparation. But Charles was not simply rewarding loyalty or popularity. He was assigning responsibility for the monarchy's emotional survival. Household leadership meant guiding private family decisions, protecting unity, and helping the next generation carry pressure without allowing old wounds to destroy the institution from within. William recognized the order as a bridge between his father's reign and his own eventual kingship. Catherine would now sit beside him during future planning meetings instead of entering after decisions had already been settled. The prince felt proud, yet the honor carried danger. Every new power given to his wife could be interpreted as something taken from Camilla. Catherine approached Charles privately after the council and asked the question no one else dared to raise. Would accepting the designation humiliate the queen? The king did not answer immediately. He admitted that he had considered the pain, but avoiding the decision would create greater instability. Silence, he said, had already allowed uncertainty to spread through the family. Camilla returned to her apartments without speaking to anyone. She sat down without removing her coat, still carrying the shock of the order. When an aide asked whether she wanted tea, the queen answered only, "Not yet." The words were simple, but they exposed how deeply the announcement had shaken her identity. She had spent years securing a place beside Charles, only to hear that the family's future emotional center now belonged to another woman. Anne then told William, during a documented private conversation after the council, that the king had discussed Catherine's future with her months earlier. The Princess Royal supported the transition, but warned that constitutional rank, the legal order of royal position, must remain separate from household leadership. William's concern deepened when he found one handwritten sentence added to the order. Catherine was to act as guardian of family unity whenever the monarch could not settle a private dispute. That line suggested Charles was preparing for more than succession. He expected a crisis. William found Catherine alone, still holding her folded copy. He reached for her hand, but she asked him not to congratulate her. Someone, she whispered, had to speak to Camilla before silence hardened into resentment. Yet before Catherine can approach the woman whose place she appears to have taken, Anne reveals the single moment that forced Charles to make the order unavoidable. The order did not begin with a lawyer, a council, or a ceremonial plan. It began during a private family dinner 6 months earlier, when a disagreement over Princess Charlotte's future shattered the illusion that the household could manage succession through polite compromise. One sentence was spoken, one chair was pushed back, and Charles, watching the people closest to him divide into opposing sides, realized the monarchy needed a final center of authority before the next crisis arrived. Tension had already been building around George, Charlotte, and Louis. William and Catherine wanted their children protected from ceremonial pressure until each of them was emotionally ready. Ceremonial duties were formal appearances and traditions used to represent continuity, but the Waleses believed early exposure could turn childhood into obligation. Camilla took a different view. She argued that visible participation from the younger generation would reassure the public during a period of uncertainty. The breaking point came during a private dinner at Windsor. Camilla suggested that Princess Charlotte should begin attending several formal household ceremonies without Catherine's direct supervision. She described it as preparation, not interference. Catherine answered calmly, but the force beneath her words was unmistakable. No decision concerning her daughter, she said, would be made around her. Charles tried to soften the disagreement. He reminded everyone that duty and family needed balance. Camilla then told Catherine that personal feelings could not be allowed to determine royal responsibility. William reacted instantly. The prince pushed back his chair and said his wife's authority as Charlotte's mother was not negotiable. Catherine remained composed, yet Charles noticed her hands trembling beneath the table. The king understood that the argument was no longer about one ceremony. It concerned who possessed the moral authority to guide the next royal generation. If that question remained unanswered, every future decision involving the children could become another battle. Anne waited until the others had left before speaking to Charles in a documented private conversation inside the empty dining room. The Princess Royal told him the family now had two centers of influence. Camilla represented the authority of the present household, while Catherine carried the trust of the future one. Sooner or later, Anne warned, the monarchy would be forced to choose between them. Charles remained beside the abandoned table after his sister departed. He straightened the chair William had pushed away, then looked at Catherine's untouched glass. Without calling an aide, the king walked to his desk and wrote her name at the top of a blank page. Later, he summoned his private secretary and began drafting the order that would place decisions about the Wales children under Catherine's guidance. Months later, that page has become a royal command, and Camilla is finally ready to confront the husband who transformed one painful dinner into her greatest defeat. Camilla does not challenge Catherine in front of the family. She waits until the corridor has emptied, follows Charles into his private sitting room, and closes the door herself. There are no aides, no carefully prepared remarks, and no ceremonial distance to protect either of them. She asks him one question, whether the order was designed to prepare the monarchy for William or to punish her. Charles does not answer immediately, and the silence wounds her more deeply than denial could have done. Camilla understands that the decree cannot change the constitutional succession, the legal order deciding who inherits the throne. Yet its symbolic force is devastating. Catherine has been presented as the monarchy's future female center, while the queen is still serving beside the king. To the family, the meaning is unmistakable. One woman represents what the institution is becoming. The other has been confined to what it is now. Charles insists the decision concerns long-term stability, not the strength of their marriage. He explains that Catherine must receive real authority before William inherits the full pressure of the crown. Without preparation, the younger couple could enter the next reign, surrounded by competing loyalties, old grievances, and uncertainty over who controls the family's private direction. Camilla's restraint breaks. She accuses Charles of allowing one painful disagreement to erase years of service. She reminds him that she remained beside him through rejection, scandal, and the crushing burden of becoming queen. The monarch acknowledges her loyalty, but his answer cuts deeply. Gratitude alone, he says, cannot guide the monarchy. Catherine commands a level of trust among the younger royals that rank cannot create. Camilla asks whether Anne pushed him toward the order. Charles confirms, during their private conversation, that his sister supported Catherine's elevation, but he refuses to use the Princess Royal as a shield. The decision was his. Every sentence, every restriction, and every consequence carried his authority. Then Charles reveals the clause Camilla had not yet seen. She may no longer direct the ceremonial roles of George, Charlotte, or Louis independently. Any future proposal must receive approval from both William and Catherine. The restriction turns emotional rejection into practical loss. Camilla warns that creating a new center of power, while the current queen remains present, will divide the household instead of uniting it. Charles hears the danger in her words, and knows the immediate fallout may prove her right. Camilla removes a ring he once gave her, and places it between them. It is not a rejection of their marriage. It is a demand that he recognize the cost. Charles reaches toward it, then stops. She leaves the ring behind. The confrontation ends without forgiveness, but beyond that closed door, Anne is already ensuring that Charles's order becomes impossible to reverse. Charles supplied the signature, but Anne supplied the structure that gave it power. While the family absorbs the emotional shock, the Princess Royal meets with the household's senior officers and turns the king's personal command into a functioning chain of authority. She does not celebrate Catherine's rise, nor does she speak against Camilla. Anne approaches the moment with colder discipline. A royal order means nothing unless every person in the palace understands precisely who must obey it. Anne leads the implementation meeting because Charles trusts her to separate feeling from duty. She explains that Catherine's designation controls 3 areas: internal family leadership, preparation of the younger generation, and ceremonial continuity. Ceremonial continuity means preserving the duties, customs, and public roles that carry the monarchy from one reign into the next. Without clear authority, every private disagreement could become a struggle over the crown's future. The household register is amended before the officers leave. The register is the palace's permanent internal record of major decisions and lines of responsibility. Catherine's name is placed beside William's in all planning involving George, Charlotte, Louis, major family ceremonies, and the eventual transition to the next reign. The change is quiet, but its meaning is enormous. She will no longer be consulted after plans are shaped. She will help shape them. Catherine enters carrying none of the confidence others expect. She tells Anne that she will not use the order to diminish Camilla or create rival courts inside the palace. The Princess Royal listens, then warns that compassion cannot become hesitation. If Catherine refuses to use legitimate authority, private influence will simply return through side conversations, personal appeals, and unofficial pressure. Anne then reveals the contingency clause Charles added. A contingency clause is a rule designed to take effect during an emergency or temporary absence. If the king becomes unable to manage household affairs, Catherine will coordinate the family beside William. Edward asks quietly, whether that authority ends with Charles's reign. Anne answers that it remains active until William, as king, issues a new instruction. The order has been written for permanence. Anne slides the amended protocol toward Catherine and places a pen beside it. The princess hesitates. Before she can sign, Anne covers the page with one hand. "Do not sign because you feel chosen," she says. "Sign because you understand the cost." Catherine meets her eyes, takes the pen, and signs. The meeting appears settled until a senior courtier enters with troubling news. Several members of Camilla's household are refusing to circulate the revised protocol. For the first time, resistance has moved beyond wounded emotion and entered palace procedure. By nightfall, the order is no longer merely Charles's decision, but the first acts of resistance reveal that accepting Catherine's authority will be far more painful than announcing it. The first consequences arrive quietly. A briefing is postponed. A seating plan is returned unsigned. 2 senior aides request clarification they do not truly need. By breakfast, the palace has separated into those who see Catherine as the necessary future, and those who believe Camilla has been humiliated inside her own household. No one declares rebellion, yet every delayed message carries the same warning. Charles may have issued an order, but loyalty cannot be reassigned with ink alone. Catherine's new authority reaches into the most sensitive part of the family's future. The revised protocol gives her final approval over engagements involving George, Charlotte, and Louis, while also granting her a formal voice in ceremonies connected to William's eventual reign. A revised protocol is an updated set of internal rules explaining who makes decisions and who must approve them. On paper, the boundary is clear. Inside the household, it feels like a transfer of trust. Camilla still stands beside Charles as queen and retains her ceremonial position throughout his reign. Yet her separate influence over the younger Wales household has been sharply reduced. One of her senior aides brings a message saying Catherine's office has requested control of an upcoming family reception. The queen reads it twice. She does not complain. She folds the page carefully, as though controlling the paper might help her control the anger beneath it. Camilla carries that restraint into her next engagement. As an attendant prepares her, the aide reaches to fasten a familiar brooch. She stops the movement and removes the piece herself. It is the same jewel she once wore at a ceremony beside Catherine, when their public roles appeared balanced. Camilla places it back in its box and chooses another without explanation. The gesture says what she refuses to voice. Something between them has changed. Catherine hears the whispers soon afterward. Staff members are calling her designation a replacement for Camilla. The phrase horrifies her. She orders her team never to use "new queen" in direct communications, even though those words now surround Charles's command. She wants responsibility without conquest, but the palace has already begun turning one woman's rise into another woman's fall. William discovers an even greater danger. A confidential summary of the order has been copied beyond the restricted council. Someone has leaked the decision before the family has agreed on how to explain it. Charles is warned that softening the language now would make him appear uncertain and destroy Catherine's authority before she uses it once. Catherine refuses to answer the crisis with another statement. She asks to meet Camilla alone, without husbands, advisors, or royal protection. The palace expects Catherine to defend the authority she has received, but when she finally enters Camilla's room alone, she arrives not with a command, but with an offer no one else knows she intends to make. There are no secretaries in the room when Catherine sits opposite Camilla. No one records their words, and neither woman uses the other's title. For the first time since Charles issued the order, the struggle is stripped of protocol. Catherine admits that she never asked to be named the family's new queen. Camilla replies that refusing the role now would not heal the wound, it would only make the humiliation meaningless. What follows changes the direction of the entire crisis. Catherine explains why she accepted. The order protects George, Charlotte, and Louis from decisions made around their parents, while also giving William's future household a clear center of authority. A future household means the private team, family structure, and decision-making system that will surround him when he becomes king. She does not want to displace Camilla. She wants to stop uncertainty from reaching her children. Camilla listens without interrupting. She admits that Catherine already carries the family's future in a way no document could create. The younger royals trust her. William depends on her. The public sees continuity in her. What wounded the Queen was not that truth, but Charles making it official without preparing her for the moment when everyone else would see it too. Catherine apologizes for the pain caused by the Windsor dinner. She refuses, however, to apologize for protecting Charlotte. Camilla accepts the difference. She says a mother should defend her daughter, even when that defense leaves someone else feeling shut out. The honesty does not remove the hurt, but it finally gives the hurt a shape both women can understand. Camilla then confesses the fear beneath her anger. She had always suspected that William's approaching reign would make her less important. The order forced her to confront that fear while Charles was still present to witness it. Catherine answers with an offer. She proposes a defined advisory role for the Queen in future family charity planning, preserving her experience without giving her authority over the Wales children. Camilla reveals something in return. She still holds Charles's first written draft, a private copy containing harsher limits on her household. She chose not to expose it, because doing so would damage the king and deepen the fracture. Catherine understands that silence, this time, had protected more than pride. The two women agree to appear together before the public announcement. They will not pretend friendship has erased the conflict. They will show that acceptance can exist without surrender. Catherine rises, but Camilla asks her to wait. She removes the brooch she rejected that morning and fastens it to her coat. No apology is spoken. Catherine briefly touches her arm. Their private agreement cannot erase the order's pain. But when the palace gates open the following morning, the world sees a single image that transforms private conflict into public history. By sunrise, the secret is no longer contained within palace walls. The order dominates broadcasts, front pages, and crowds gathered outside Windsor Castle. Yet the moment that captures the world is not Charles's signature. It is the sight of Catherine stepping forward with Camilla beside her, while William and the king remain one pace behind. In a single, carefully controlled appearance, the monarchy confirms that power has shifted, but it also reveals that the family has chosen not to let that shift become destruction. Buckingham Palace releases a formal statement confirming that Charles has designated Catherine as the principal female guardian of the royal family's future and the central partner in preparing for William's reign. The designation concerns family leadership, generational continuity, and the structure that will guide the next royal household. Officials also make one point unmistakably clear: Camilla remains queen beside the king throughout his reign. Catherine's authority belongs to the future, not the current constitutional order. Charles watches the first broadcast alone. A commentator describes the decision as his final act of trust in Catherine, and the words strike harder than praise should. The king lowers his head because he hears the judgment hidden inside them. Trust placed in one woman is being presented as trust withdrawn from another. Camilla has accepted the boundary, but he knows public language can reopen wounds that private honesty has only begun to close. William feels a different kind of fear. He watches Catherine face the cameras and realizes that the order has transformed years of quiet preparation into a public expectation she can no longer escape. The prince sees pride in the crowd, but he also sees pressure. Every future success will now be treated as proof that Charles chose correctly. Every mistake will be used against her. Outside Windsor Castle, the tension becomes history. A crowd gathers beneath a newspaper front page reading, "Charles chooses Catherine, the queen of the family's future." One broadcaster calls it, "the day the crown showed its next face, before the next reign began." The phrase turns a private household decision into a national event. Camilla steps forward first, then gestures for Catherine to move ahead. The future queen refuses. She matches the monarch's pace instead. For one suspended moment, the crowd falls silent. Then applause rises for both women. The gesture says what no statement could. Catherine accepts the future without erasing the present. Camilla protects her dignity without resisting what comes next. William and Charles follow behind them, each aware that unity has survived, but not without cost. When the applause fades and the doors close again, Charles gathers the family one final time not to issue another command, but to deliver the emotional verdict behind the order that changed them all. Charles does not end the crisis from a throne. He ends it seated among his family, without a desk, a prepared speech, or a royal seal between them. Catherine sits beside William. Camilla takes her place opposite the king. Anne and Edward remain close enough to hear every breath. Charles tells them his order was never meant to declare one woman worthy and another defeated. It was meant to ensure that the monarchy entered its next chapter before uncertainty could tear the family apart. Charles confirms that Catherine's designation will stand. A designation is a formally assigned role, and this one makes her the family's leading female figure for the future. She will guide preparations for William's reign and protect the independence of George, Charlotte, and Louis. The king stresses that her new authority prepares the next household. It does not remove Camilla from the present one. Camilla listens as Charles preserves her place beside him. Her charitable work, public service, and ceremonial position will remain fully honored throughout his reign. The monarch then apologizes for preparing the order without trusting her with the truth. He does not apologize for the decision itself. He admits that secrecy made its impact far more painful than necessary. Camilla answers with quiet control. She accepts Catherine's future authority because their private conversation proved the younger woman would never use power to erase her. Catherine responds immediately. She will not call herself the family's new queen, while Charles and Camilla remain at the center of the current reign. She accepts the responsibility, but refuses to turn it into a weapon. William promises that his future reign will preserve the memory of Charles's service and Camilla's endurance. The prince will not build tomorrow by pretending yesterday never existed. Anne supports him, declaring that the order succeeded because it established responsibility before succession and forced the family to choose cooperation over competing influence. Edward remains silent, but his relief confirms how close the division came to becoming permanent. Charles removes the original handwritten page bearing Catherine's name and gives it to Camilla. The queen studies it, then passes it across the room to Catherine. The present willingly entrusts the future to the woman chosen to carry it. Catherine does not emerge as a conqueror, and Camilla does not leave as a defeated queen. Charles secures the transition. William gains an acknowledged partner. Anne sees duty restored. The crown's new moral center rises through restraint, not ambition. The order began as a signature dividing one room, but it ended as a promise uniting an entire dynasty. The crown would move forward, the family would remain standing, and Catherine would carry its future without destroying the people who came before her. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.